Hey everyone, welcome to my Unholy Deathknight guide for patch 9.2.5 here at the end of Shadowlands. There was just one little thing I wanted to get out of the way before we dive into the guide, and I just wanted to say I'm making a general guide here for beginners and mid-level players, anyone that might be like, hey, I want to pick up the Unholy DK. You know, I'm not here to min-max, I'm not here to try to mythic raid with it or do like mythic plus 22s. So we're just going to be talking about playing as a straight Necrolord and just using Necrolord to either get yourself, you know, you could get Keystone Master with this, you could do the heroic raid. There are better options in some circumstances that I'll talk about in another video with the Unholy Deathknight, but this is just a beginner guide for, you know, anyone that wants to pick up the Unholy DK, and I'm just trying to make it as simple as possible. So we're going to be going over our stat priority, what gems, enchants, and consumables you should be running. We'll take a look at our Covenant Conduit tree talents, and we'll also take a look at our legendary powers, and then we'll talk about our cooldowns and our spells. So let's get right into our stat priority right now. Our stat priority on the Unholy Deathknight is going to be Strength, then Mastery, then Haste, then Crit, then Verse. It's pretty easy. You want to have a bunch of Mastery because you and your minions do more damage based on how much Mastery you have. And you want to have a decent amount of haste so that you can spam all your fun buttons, and it also makes your disease do its damage a little bit quicker. Jumping right into our enchants, consumables, and gems. For our weapon, we're going to be rune forging the Rune of the Fallen Crusader onto it. We're going to be taking Eternal Strength on our gloves. We're going to be taking Eternal Stats on our chest. For our rings, we're going to be taking Tenet of Mastery. If you have a lot of Mastery, feel free to put on Tenet of Haste. For your boots, you can put on Speed of Soul, and on your cloak, you should be running Fortified Avoidance. We're going to be taking a Spectral Flask of Power just for flask buff. You can run Shaded Sharpening Stone on your weapon. If you don't have Sharpening Stones, you could also run Shadow Core Oil. It does help out a little bit. The food we want to eat is either from a feast, or we want to eat the Mastery food, which is Iridescent Ravioli with applesauce. For our gems, we're just going to be throwing in Mastery gems. Like I said, if you have enough Mastery, feel free to put Haste gems on instead. And then you can also run a Heavy Desolate Armor Kit, which gives you some extra stamina. You just put this on your chest piece. And the final thing you can do to really push yourself if you want to is you can use Augment Runes. Let's take a look at our Covenant Soulbinds and our talents. So obviously we're going to be playing Necrolord on this build. We're going to be running the Plague Deviser Merilith tree. And this is the raid tree, I will just straight up admit that. But this build is so good that, like I said, if you want to do the heroic raid, you want to get Keystone Master, do some 15s, this will definitely get you there. I promise you, I've been doing 13s and 14s, I think, with this build, and I'm probably going to be getting Keystone Master this coming week. But anyways, we're going to be taking Eternal Hunger, which extends Dark Transformation and makes our minion do more damage. We're going to take Condensed Anima Spear for some survivability. We're going to take Convocation of the Dead, so when a Festering Wound bursts, Apocalypse's cooldown is reduced by 1 second, and Festering Wound damage is increased by 30%. We're going to be running Spirit Drain, which is actually super helpful. It makes us actually want to hit interrupts, so whenever we interrupt, we'll get some runic power. We're going to take Brutal Grasp, so A-Bomb Limb deals an extra 60% increased damage. This is a crazy one. And the final one we're taking is Fleeting Wind for a little bit of extra mobility. We have some amazing soulbinds, and I'm just going to leave this up here for a sec. You guys can take a look. Again, Eternal Hunger, Condensed Anima Spear, Convocation of the Dead, Spirit Drain, Brutal Grasp, and Fleeting Wind, just so you guys can get that. We have amazing soulbinds. I've been playing Affliction Lock, I've been playing my Assassination Rogue, and just some other classes here and there. Nothing compares to what the Unholy DK gets. Just our 3 potency conduits alone they're just insane. Taking a look at our talents, these are the same talents you will be running in Raid or Mythic Plus. I think they work well in both, so I'm just going to tell you to run with these, especially if you're just trying to do lower level keys or just like LFR or the normal level Raid. This is going to get you wherever you need to go. So the first talent we're going to be taking is Clawing Shadows. It replaces Scourge Strike, it deals more damage, and it gives it a 30-yard range. So this makes us into a very adaptable class, and this is one reason I really love the Unholy Deathknight, is we're not locked into melee. So if you think of something like the third fight in Sanguine Depths, you can make sure you have some wounds on your target, and then when she is casting her spells, her big AoE things, you can move out and use Clawing Shadows and Death Coil and pretty much stay in, like, as a range class for like 15 or 20 seconds, depending on how much runic power you generate and, you know, how many wounds you left on the target. But I definitely just love Clawing Shadows, and I don't want to talk about it too long, but it's a great talent. The second talent we're going to be taking is Unholy Blight. I'll just show it to you guys here. It pretty much applies our plague to all targets around us for however many seconds, and it gives them a stacking debuff. When that debuff reaches 4 stacks, our minion does 12% increased damage to those enemies. So you always want to be pressing Unholy Blight with Dark Transformation, and just be aware of that. Just always be pressing these two buttons together. Dark Transformation is a 1-minute cooldown, and Unholy Blight is a 45-second cooldown, so just be aware of that. You can't just press Blight and assume that Transformation is up. You just want to make sure Dark Transformation is up, press Blight, press Dark Transformation. In the level 30 row, you can take whatever you want. I like Asphyxiate. It's just a nice 4-second stun, and it makes you feel like a Sith Lord. In level 35, Soul Reaper is a mandatory talent, especially with something like your 2-set, or, well, not your 2-set, your 4-set. I think this is going to become a baseline spell for Unholy DKs, or maybe just DKs in general when it comes to Dragonflight. So Soul Reaper is an execute ability, so you want to cast this when you know a target is going to be below 35% HP, and if this ability goes off after 5 seconds, that enemy explodes and does AoE damage around it. Or if that enemy dies, it gives you Runic Corruption. And this does affect our 4-set no matter which secondary effect goes off. So whether the enemy explodes and does damage, or if the enemy dies and you get Runic Corruption, either way it will proc your 4-set, just so you're aware. In level 40, you can take whatever you want. Spell Eater is actually a pretty popular one. I like to take Wraithwalk because a lot of tanks just like to chain pull and run away from you, and we're DK with 1 movement ability. So sometimes it's like, oh, I need to use Death's Advance for a different reason or something. I like to have Wraithwalk for some extra mobility. We're going to be taking Unholy Pact, so when we cast Dark Transformation and our minion transforms, it's going to give us this line between us right here, you can see. This stays up for 15 seconds, it does a bunch of damage, and while this bond is active, our strength is increased by 5%. So just makes our Dark Transformation more powerful. As you can see, that's something that this spec plays around, is transforming our minion into the Abomination and murdering stuff with him. The final talent we're going to take is Army of the Damned. So Death Coil and Epidemic reduce the cooldown of Apocalypse and Army of the Dead by 5 seconds, and both of those spells will also summon a Magus of the Dead, who is just an extra minion that casts for you. He does a little bit of extra damage, I think, compared to the other minions, but these are the talents you should be running. These are what I run. It's super good on Tyrannical weeks. It's totally perfectly fine in any other week. It's just amazing, honestly. The Unholy DK is in a great spot right now. So the first thing I want to show you guys is what you should be doing when you're going to do a cooldown pull. This is pretty much the start of every pull. The only thing that changes is I would only use Army of the Dead on boss fights, or at least make sure you're going to have it up for boss fights, because we're really good at single target, and Army of the Dead just amplifies our single target. But the way you're going to do this, and I just want to make sure I do this right, so I'm going to do it a little slow for you guys, or else I'm going to have to wait 8 minutes or sit here and try to reduce my Army of the Dead cooldown. But this is how I activate my cooldowns. You can do it a little bit differently, but because the minions from Army of the Dead take about 5 seconds to fully get out of the ground before they start fighting, you're going to Army of the Dead, 2 Festering Strikes, we're going to cast Apocalypse, we're going to cast Unholy Blight, Dark Transformation, go into A-Bomb Limb, cast IQD, our Trinket, And then we're just trying to extend our minion as long as we can. So whenever I can cast a death coil, I'm going to cast a death coil. I'm also making sure that I'm always hitting a festering wound on the target. Now I'd like to show you guys just what a typical AoE pull, just pulling a normal trash pack, would look like. Again, most of our cooldowns are going to be up most of the time, so we're just playing around our cooldowns. That's how our class plays. So if I were to like be running into an AoE pull in a Mythic Plus, it would be like Festering Strike, Apocalypse, Unholy Blight, Dark Transformation, and then I would cast Epidemic until I can't cast Epidemic anymore, drop Death and Decay, and then make sure I'm always hitting a Festering Wound, trying to manage my runic power as well, and that's all you do. And you do the same thing with A-Bomb Limb, but you won't have A-Bomb Limb up for every single pull, so I just want you guys to be aware of that. You're not going to always have A-Bomb Limb up, so that's just a simple AoE rotation. Get your Apocalypse out, cast Unholy Blight, Dark Transformation, Epidemic until you're out of runic power, drop Death and Decay, and then you just pretty much manage your Festering Wounds and keep casting Epidemic when you need to. The last little thing I want to go over for you guys here is just a basic rotation priority. So it is Soul Reaper if the target has less than 35% health or is going to have less than 35% health in 5 seconds. Festering Strike if the target has less than 3 Festering Wounds on it. And then all we're going to do is use Clawing Shadows otherwise, or Death Coil or Epidemic if you are getting close to runic power capping. So just make sure you're never runic power capping and you should be good. The only other thing you might need to do is if you are an AoE, you can cast Death and Decay, and this makes your Clawing Shadows hit up to 4 enemies near the target, so up to 5 enemies, and this just helps you do some more AoE damage. So just be aware of those, and that's pretty much your rotation priority. I am going to go more in depth over some of the Unholy DK abilities and just some little things that can make you a little better at the Unholy DK, just some tips and tricks I've learned here. I'm actually a little bit under the weather and I do want to get this video out when the patch releases, so I'm going to have to just go through with what I have now. I think you guys should get the gist of how to play the Unholy DK. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. I am happy to answer them. I'm going to be making some more content over the next few days, couple weeks, so if you have questions, maybe just wait for those videos. You might get your question answered. But I just want to say thanks for watching this video, guys. Like I said, I'm under the weather, but I really wanted to get this content out. I've been wanting to make videos and guides again, so I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.